This section of the training uh, focuses on the perspective of the roots of malnutrition truly in the soil. Um, so we'll go through this. It's been eye-opening for me to understand malnutrition from this perspective. When a newborn baby opens his or her eyes to check out their new environment, he or she will discover that this world is covered with brown, sandy, muddy, or rocky stuff with green things growing out of it. What that little one cannot know is that his or her growth, health, intellectual development, and even chance of survival may depend more upon the quality of that brown substance than upon any other factor. When that soil is rich or poor in micronutrients, determines whether plants and animals, including humans, that consume them grow well, are hardy, and survive diseases. What are micronutrients? Essential micronutrients include vitamins and minerals that occur in small or trace amounts in the diet and are essential for. Only recently are we coming to understand how micronutrients in the soil impacts the quantity and nutritional quality of the foods that it. There are many pressures on soil. It can be accidentally contaminated with toxins or radiation, carelessly eroded, leached, chemically overtreated, or deforested. Erosion, leaching, deforestation, and perhaps forest fires. When the soil of a region is depleted of specific nutrients, plants, animals, and human nutritional deficiency states can often be found in those places. The consequences can be devastating and deadly. Sometimes scientific information on micronutrients in soils, crops, and farm animals sheds light on the role of micronutrients in human health and especially child survival. Many micronutrients are required for child survival. One of the best predictors of survival is that a child is growing well. Growth stunting in children is an ominous warning of risk of death, especially from infection. What does stunting look like? Nearly 40% of all children less than 5 in the world are stunted due to micronutrient deficiency. Of course, they're not all as dramatic as this pair of schoolgirls of the same age in Bangladesh. The girl on the right is stunted, the girl on the left is growing normally. But you will see this frequently, surprisingly, when visiting the developing world, that many children look a few years younger than their age. You have to look at their teeth to see how old they are rather than their height. And it's not genetic differences. That's been well studied. It is there are norms that have been well studied for stunting and across all continents, all ethnic groups, all races, and the differences, the range of normal is established and it is now applicable globally. Stunting around the world, where are these children found? High number is in uh, East and South Asia and the Pacific, Central Asia, Middle East and North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, and the Americas. The the high burden countries are again in Africa and Asia. You can see on the map, prevalence of stunting greater than 40% in the red. Now, it was in the 1960s that we realized the role of zinc in stunting. We used to use the term, I remember hearing people talk about adolescent nutritional dwarfism or growth stunting. Sometimes it was not recognized to be zinc deficiency, but zinc deficiency is a huge part of that. This is an interesting map for where zinc deficiency is found on planet Earth, and notice that in North America, in Mexico and the US, there are widespread areas of zinc deficiency. soil zinc deficiency examples in half of the soils in India, a third in China, and 50% in. And consequences in their zinc deficiency in the soil, the plants are stunted, the tissues are translucent, the leaves are crinkled. In animal, there's stunting, hair loss, skin lesions, testicular atrophy, birth complications, and in humans, stunting, increased infections, increased impaired cognitive function, testicular atrophy, and decreased child survival. So, moving on to iron. Look again at the map of the world and look how much of Africa is severe iron deficiency. Red is severe, and Asia. Iodine deficiency. Now, widespread in South America, parts of Central America, and look at scattered in Asia and Europe. And actually, there's iodine deficiency in regions of the U.S., but not clinical public health problems because of the iodized salt in the U.S. and most developed countries now. Some countries, like India, have a lot of information about their soil. Look at their nice agroecological zones map that the country has produced. 49% of their soil is deficient in zinc, 4% in manganese, 3% in copper, 33% in boron. But we don't know that kind of statistics for much of the world where there's a lot of malnutrition. Global burden of diseases due to micronutrient deficiencies. 2 billion the world are deficient in iron, causing anemia. 2 billion people, a major cause of death in women. 750 million people are globally suffer from iodine deficiency, the biggest cause of mental retardation worldwide. And this is not soil deficient, but 250 million children in the world estimated to be deficient in vitamin A. That's supposed to have vitamin A behind it, putting them at risk for death from infections, causing 500,000 annual cases of blindness in children. 56% of the deaths among children under age 5 in 53 developing countries were related to micronutrient deficiencies. Now, some of those statistics we hope are getting better. Some of these are a couple of years old, but and a lot of progress is actually being made. But we have a long way to go. Adverse effects of micronutrient deficiencies in humans, according to the CDC, child survival and growth, women's health and pregnancy outcomes, brain development and IQ of populations, not just individuals, whole communities, whole populations. Interestingly enough, Napoleon is said to have felt that he couldn't get good soldiers out of Switzerland, and some people believe that they were widespread iodine deficiency was causing lower IQ. That's no longer a problem with the Swiss. Educational achievement, adult productivity, and resistance to illness. Consequences, these are the diseases that are related to specific micronutrient deficiencies. You can look over most of those things we only see in textbooks. In the developed world, when have we seen scurvy and pellagra, beriberi, noma, nutritional blindness, iodine deficiency? These things are not seen anymore because of improved diet and also food fortification. The first 1,000 days of a child's life from conception to age 24 months are critical in determining a child's survival and future health and intellectual development. Now, we're going to look at a few examples of diseases related to specific micronutrient deficiencies. This is the disease rickets, which, again, we don't see anymore, but it is still in the developed world, but it is still seen in developing countries. Vitamin A deficiency, nutritional blindness, the bulging corneas, which can lead to rupture and permanent blindness. This child is most likely irreversibly blind. Nutritional anemia, iron deficiency, deficient children show symptoms of pallor, fatigue, micronutrient nutrition is also critically important for women at childbearing age, as nutritional anemia is a significant contributor to maternal mortality. Now, iodine deficiency, goiter, but also cretinism. The picture on the right is four brothers. They're working at a salt mine, and the two brothers on either side were born after the salt was iodized, and their mother had access to iodized salt. They were not born cretin. The two middle brothers were born to the family before the salt was iodized, and those two brothers are cretins. Now, cretins can have variable intellectual development. Some can have productive jobs, but others are disabled by their mental slowness, mental retardation, physical impairments, and can not be working productive individuals. Consequences of micronutrient deficiencies, nutritional aids, and ability to fight off infections, diseases like NOMA occur in places where the soil, the plants, the animals, and the children are micronutrient deficient. Consequences of micronutrient deficient, children who are micronutrient deficient are more vulnerable to death from infections such as malaria, pneumonia, and diarrhea. Now, what the selenium deficiency, the white muscle disease in animals, animal muscular dystrophy, this is showing the muscle, the white muscle in an affected lamb, the dark red muscle that is not affected, but the white pale muscle that is affected. Now, Cashin-Beck disease is affecting the growth of cartilage. This man has symptoms, restricted movement in large joints, and this problem has been controlled by public health intervention of selenium supplementation. Factors that contribute to micronutrient depletion. The immediate causes: inadequate intake of vitamins and minerals, diseases that cause a loss of or the need for more vitamins and minerals, but underlying causes: low content or density of vitamins and minerals in the food, inadequate care of mothers and children, lack of access to health services, clean water, good sanitation, agricultural land, many reasons. Factors contributing to poor micronutrient availability in food sources: inadequate income to purchase a variety of sufficient amounts of food, poor quality of the habitual diet, food customs, lack of dietary diversity, food access and availability to fertile land, and micronutrient availability in soils on which the food. People who are dependent upon food that is micronutrient deficient because it was grown in micronutrient depleted soils are at risk for micronutrient deficiency and the disease state associated with those deficiencies. For example, populations living in iodine deficient regions have high incidence of iodine deficient goiter, mental and physical growth retardation known as cretinism. With iodinization of salt, this problem is completely eliminated as a public health problem. But do we even know the names of the people that worked hard to iodize our salt on our behalf? That's often interested me, that we are so much healthier because of things that other people have done and passed laws on our behalf and written policies which people had to follow. And we are the beneficiaries of that, but we don't even know who to thank. Another example is in a belt running through large regions of China, selenium deficiency was found to be causing orthopedic deformities, cardiac failure, and white muscle disease. Selenium supplementation as a public health intervention has this problem. So combating micronutrient deficiencies, public health approaches, education, advocacy, disease control, socioeconomic and environmental issues have to be addressed. Food-based strategies, dietary approaches, promotion breastfeeding and adequate complementary feeding. So often children become micronutrient, and especially right after they start to wean from the breast. the mother starts to feed them a baby food that is basically starch and sugar, sugar and some kind of either corn or whatever starchy vegetable is most widely available, making a thin gruel and feeding the child that as food until they're a few years old, at which time they've gone from being a healthy baby to a sick preschooler, sick toddler, and that time of weaning uh, to food was the cause of the failure in the development of malnutrition. Um, that is a matter of education, a very important matter of education, because if the family has food, the baby could be could be weaned from the breast and started on mashed table food and not fed a baby food that actually was so nutrient poor that the child fell into malnutrition. Supplementation, when is chosen when nutrient intake is difficult to achieve through diet. Fortification is expensive, adds vitamins, minerals to food, and condiments that are regularly consumed. Now, climate and soil conditions impose a ceiling on the health the community can achieve. Plants and animals trying to survive in a depleted environment cannot face an enemy that cannot be underestimated, and that is micronutrient poor soil. Uh, by the way, how do you replete that? Well, there's many ways to address this. People around the world have come up with creative solutions like pits, digging a hole in the ground, throwing in agricultural waste, household scraps, allowing termites to churn that up, compost, so to speak, putting human waste in it, letting it turn into fertile soil, then planting a tree. Move on, dig another hole. These are called pits. And that has been an important way of remediating the soil in many places. Another technique that has been shown to work is in land that has become desert. It was good farmland, is now desert. If people put rows of stones, when the rains come, scraps of agricultural material, leaves, grass, get caught between the stones, they decay, you get a little string of soil, a seed falls into it, the weeds grow, the trees grow, and eventually over time some of that land can be reclaimed. So this is not it's not something that is done overnight. It's something that is not done by foreigners. It's done by the people who live there and eat there and work there, understanding the importance of redeeming their own environment. And also working together to prevent the further degradation of agricultural soil and climate. Now, successful fortification and distribution. Vitamins A and D in milk, iodine in salt, iron in flour, and B vitamins in flour, fluoride in water, vitamin A in sugar, vitamin A capsules, folic acid in iron tablets, multiple vitamins, iodine-enriched oil, vitamin D capsules, cod liver oil, zinc tablets for diarrhea and pneumonia, by the way. Many successful interventions tried, but there's still a large population that does not consume processed or fortified foods and is not reached by these successful interventions. So home food fortification, this is something that many people, many governments are promoting. There's many schemes. We have come up with our own formula that has all of the micronutrients. Some of the micronutrient programs are very limited, not balanced, and we are advocating that they should be balanced formulas. They can ensure the most vulnerable children and adults, especially childbearing women, to receive the micronutrients to prevent death and disease. Micronutrient powder has attracted interest because it's inexpensive, low tech, able to address multiple deficiencies are prevalent in developing countries, especially where soils are the most depleted. What other people are saying, Bread for the World, in their 2006 report, because malnutrition affects health, education, employment, and life's others essential, it's everybody's problem. Unfortunately, in too many countries, this means that it ends up being nobody's problem, so no one takes the lead to fix it. And this is Doctors Without Borders. Many families simply cannot afford to provide nutritious food, particularly animal source food such as milk, meat, and eggs that their young children need to grow and survive and thrive. Instead, they struggle to survive far from the media spotlight on a diet of little more than cereal porridges of rice, maize or rice, amounting to the equivalent of bread and water. And they said this in the context of their push to get our country and other developed countries, when sending food aid, to send fortified cereal and fortified foods rather than just fried grains. What others are saying, fortifying foods with basic vitamins and minerals is both essential and affordable. That's Bill Gates. And the president of the Micronutrient Initiative, we now have the knowledge and the solutions that can protect the muscles, brains, and blood of whole populations at an extraordinarily low cost. And the Asian Development Bank head of the road to regional health and lifelong productivity cannot be passed without removing the obstacle of vitamin and mineral deficiency. Why not allow all children born at this time in human history to have a share in the heritage of life-saving scientific advances that have eliminated the childhood disease and death from micronutrient malnutrition in many regions of the world? Why not allow help and hope to come to all children, even those who by the accident of their birth are sons and daughters of the soil that has been ravaged and wasted? They are not doomed unless their needs are ignored and those who could bring help choose not. It takes a village to raise a vulnerable child. Governments need political will, religious leaders and nonprofits need moral conviction, food producers need technical support, mothers need power and opportunity to nourish their children with micronutrient-rich food, whether they grow it, buy it, or enrich it with micronutrients in their own